Today, I wanted to sort of talk to you guys about dealing with the stress of teaching. I know a lot of people are sort of struggling with that, and I myself was most definitely there, and it's a roller coaster ride, really, for all of us. So today might actually be one of my longer Facebook lives, but I just kind of wanted to go through some information with you that I hope will be of service. So here we go. Okay. So for me, there, are two primary ways that people adopt to improve their quality of life. And the first way, and probably the most common, at least is the one that we normally go to first, is that we attempt to change the external circumstances, what we're dealing with, to fit our ideals, our goals, our wants, our desires, right? The second way, in case that doesn't work, the second way that we try to improve our quality of life is by changing how we view the experience itself. If we can't change the external circumstances, we might change how we view it. In other words, we might change how we experience the experience, right? So what does this exactly mean for us as educators? Should we just adopt one of these strategies to have a higher quality of life? Do we need both? And if so, how can we truly apply them? And that's sort of what I want to talk to you guys about today. So first, let's consider our circumstances. For some of us, right, we might be frustrated at the numerous things that are beyond our control. Principal among these being the technology, right? And that, like the kids can't get online, they're having internet connections, maybe the software we're using keeps glitching, you name it. All beyond our control. And as teachers, while we do our best to troubleshoot these problems, the bottom line is that we have to be sort of modest, in a way, about how much is truly within our control. In other words, we have to sort of be aware of our limitations, right? And if we try to go beyond that, then we're going to start to feel frustrated, right? But if we don't, and we recognize, hey, this is something that I can't fix right now, at least not in this moment, right? This will help us to cope when situations arise that seem to sort of have us bumfuzzled, right? So now me personally, I'm a type B personality. I'm spontaneous and I'm just a we'll figure it out as we go kind of girl. So, but at work, it's a little different for me. When things aren't organized and things just aren't just so, right? Or maybe I just don't understand how, or more importantly, why a situation is being handled a certain way. For me, it can have profoundly negative effects. So I'm sure that you can relate with that in some way. So in this particular situation, there are some things about our external situation that we just can't change right now, right? But by the same token, there are some actions that we can take to make our experience better on the outside, and also how we experience it, or at least how we experience this very unique situation. And that's sort of what I want to talk to you guys about today as well. So the first thing is I think we should ask ourselves, how do we view this current situation? How do we view it? In mostly a negative light? Right? It's true, definitely, that we're going to have bad days, bad weeks even. There are most definitely always going to be rocks in the road, so to speak. And it's totally fine to vent about that. And we need to be able to do that without judgment, right? We're all human. But in general, what is our view? Right? And we can have a negative view, a pessimistic view, but that's really not going to get us anywhere. The second thing that we should do is ask ourselves, how do I view this situation when decisions are finally being made? Right? How do I view those decisions? And the thing, for me, I think what we have to realize is that, no one knows, no one truly knows how things are going to turn out, right? But realizing that will sort of help us remain balanced and supportive of those who are working really hard on our behalf. And it will also help us to be understanding when a decision has been made, whether we agree with that decision, at the time or not. So just pointing that out. The next thing is the next thing we can sort of ask ourselves is, how will this situation bring me closer to my goal, right? So for me personally, for example, I need to feel challenged to be fulfilled, for sure. And sure, simple pleasures like watching, TV or just sitting on the couch and just like literally not doing anything sometimes, those simple pleasures absolutely do make life more balanced, 100%. But to be really fulfilled, I need to really exert myself towards something and then get to the other side of that. And when I do, I'm like, man, wow. And while it's true that through that process, especially now, right, it's true that through that process, not every moment is pleasurable or fun or amazing or great, right? But when I get to the end of it, I really do feel accomplished and I feel more complete. I feel more whole, right? I feel more fulfilled. And so for me, I know that this situation will 100% elevate my teaching to a whole new level. So figure out your personal goal and ask yourself, how will this situation bring you to your goal or closer to your goal as an educator, whatever that may be, right? And then another thing that we want to consider are some concrete actions that we can do to get control of this situation. And I'm just kind of going to go through like a running list here. So hopefully you can take maybe one thing out of this that might be helpful. So as far as concrete actions, number one, get organized, right? And you can feel free to message me about that if you need some assistance. I've got sort of a whole system and it seems to be working pretty well in this situation, especially with, the pressure and the time constraints and everything going on. The next thing is call parents. My goal is to call 5 parents a day. And I think this is really helping. I think I've actually even though I've called several parents, I've actually only talked to one on the phone. Everybody else I've just left voicemails for. And that was very interesting to me. But basically on the voicemail, I said something like, hey, it's Ms. Hernandez here. I'm just calling to check in. I know that this situation and how school started is a bit different. And so I wanted to reach out and see if you had any questions about anything. If not, then that's perfectly fine. I'll check back in with you. I'll follow up with you in a few weeks, right? So that's sort of how I have handled that situation. But I want to reach out because I know that the parents are like beyond stressed right now, and I get that. So I definitely want to touch base and have some sort of positive interaction before something comes up, right? The next thing is spend time doing something recreational or exercise. We need that 100%. It helps to balance life. And the next thing is this is really important. It's like super key, is to recognize the symptoms of burnout, right? They are emotional exhaustion, chronic frustration, cognitive delays, also interpersonal problems, lashing out at people, those kinds of things. And there's, a whole list of it. You can literally Google it. So if that's happening, recognize that. And you definitely, might take some steps to kind of help reduce that. And one of those steps could be to sort of disconnect the technology at home, right? Because, with the internet and our phones and our computers and our tablets and everything, sort of the line between like work and our personal life kind of gets blended a little bit. It gets blurred. And so if we can reduce that, that might help to reduce some of the fatigue. Also, the next thing is this might sound kind of overly simplistic, but to prioritize our priorities, right? That might be our health, that might be our family, whatever that is. But remember that, our success as a teacher is not going to be defined by how much time we spend checking emails, right? So put that away and make the priorities in your life truly a priority. And this is another thing. Obviously, for many of us educators, changing jobs right now probably isn't the most realistic thing that we can do. You might have considered that. But I want to point out that we don't necessarily have to change jobs. This situation is going to pass one way or another. But at least for the time being, changing the way, we might want to think about how we do our job, and changing the way we do it, it might not be as hard as we think, right? So if we feel like we're just pushing against a big boulder and it's not going anywhere, there might be some shifts or some pivots that we could take to help change the way we do this job, so that way it's not so taxing on ourselves. And it might not, like I said, it might not be as hard as you think to make those changes. So you can definitely, for some ideas, feel free to reach out, and we can see if we can work out something together. And then lastly, very important, learn when to say no to work, right? We all have to set boundaries, because teaching is one of those jobs that we could literally do 24 hours a day and literally never stop, right? It can easily take over our lives if we let it. So that's the end of it. And I wanted to remind you, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for trainings and other motivational content and instructional videos and things like that. So that's below, the link to do that is just below this video. And that's all I've got for you today. So I hope to see you there, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.